1 Samuel chapter 16. The Lord then said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have cast him away from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil, and come, I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite. For I have provided me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? For if Saul shall hear it, he will kill me. Then the Lord answered, Take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to do sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what shalt you do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I named unto thee. So Samuel did that the Lord had bade him, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town were astonished at his coming, and said, Comest thou peaceably? And he answered, Yea, I am come to do sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And we sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. And when they were come, he looked on Eliab, and said, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, Look not on his countenance, nor on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For God seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh upon the outward appearance, but God beholdeth the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab, and made him come before Samuel, and he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen this. Then Jesse made Shammah come, and he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen him. Again Jesse made his 7 sons to come before Samuel, and Samuel said unto Jesse, The Lord hath chosen none of these. Finally Samuel said unto Jesse, Are there no more children but these? And he said, There remaineth yet a little one behind, that keepeth the sheep. Then Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent, and brought him in, and he was ruddy, and of a good countenance, and comely visage. And the Lord said, Arise and anoint him, for this is he. And Samuel took the horn of oil, and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. Then Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. The Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit sent of the Lord vexed him. And Saul's servants said unto him, Behold now, the evil spirit of God vexeth thee. Let our Lord therefore command thy servants that are before thee to seek a man that is a cunning player upon the harp, that when the evil spirit of God cometh upon thee, he may play with his hand, and thou mayest be eased. Saul then said unto his servants, Provide me a man, I pray you, that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of his servants, and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse, a Bethlehemite, that can play, and is strong, valiant, and a man of war, and wise in matters, and cometh a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse, and said, Send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesse took an ass laden with bread, and a flagon of wine, and a kid, and sent them by the hand of David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul, and stood before him, and he loved him very well, and he was his armor-bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David now remain with me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And so when the evil spirit of God came upon Saul, David took an harp and played with his hand, and Saul was refreshed and eased, for the evil spirit departed from him. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered their armies to battle, and came together to Succoth, which is in Judah, and pitched between Succoth and Azekah in the coast of Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel assembled and pitched in the valley of Elah, and put themselves in battle array to meet the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, so a valley was between them. Then came a man between them both, out of the tents of the Philistines. named Goliath of Gath. His height was 6 cubits and an handbreadth, and he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and a brigandine upon him, and the weight of his brigandine was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had boots of brass upon his legs, and a shield of brass upon his shoulders. And the shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried against the host of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come to set your battle array? Am I not a Philistine, and you servants of Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me, and kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I overcome him, and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us. Also the Philistines said, I defy the host of Israel this day. Give me a man, that we may fight together. Then Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines. They were discouraged and greatly afraid. Now this David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, named Jesse, which had 8 sons. And this man was taken for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to battle. The names of these 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab the eldest, and next Abinadab, and third Shammah. So David was the least, and the 3 eldest went after Saul. David also went, but he returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep in Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near in the morning and evening, and continued 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 cakes, and run to the host, to thy brethren. Also carry these 10 fresh cheeses unto the captain, and look how thy brethren fare, and receive their pledge. Then Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him, and came within the compass of the host. And the host went out in array, and shouted in the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put themselves in array, army against army. And David left the things which he bare under the hands of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the host, and came, and asked his brethren how they did. And as he talked with them, behold, the man that was between the 2 armies came up, whose name was Goliath the Philistine of Gath, out of the army of Philistines. And he spake such words, and David heard him. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, ran away from him, and were sore afraid. For every man of Israel said, Saw ye not this man that cometh up, even to revile Israel as he come up? And to him that killeth him will the king give great riches, and will give him his daughter, yea, and make his father's house free in Israel. Then David spake to the men that stood with him, and said, What shall be done for the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the shame from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should revile the host of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, Thus shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab was very angry with David, and said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and thy malice of thine heart, that thou art come down to see the battle. Then David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he departed from him into the presence of another, and spake of the same manner. And people answered him according to the former words. And they that heard the words which David spake rehearsed them before Saul, which caused him to be brought. So David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail him because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art a boy, and he is a man of war from his youth. And David answered unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion, and likewise a bear, and took a sheep out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and took it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by the beard, and smote him, and slew him. So thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. Therefore this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath railed on the host of the living God. Moreover David said, The Lord that delivereth me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Then Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul put his raiment upon David, and put an helmet of brass upon his head, and put a brigandine upon him. Then girded David his sword upon his raiment, and began to go, for he never proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I am not accustomed. Therefore David put them off him. Then took he his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of a brook, and put them in his shepherd's bag or scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. Now when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but young, ruddy, and of a comely face. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of heaven, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the host of Israel, whom thou hast railed upon. This day shall the Lord close thee in mine hand, and I shall smite thee, and take thine head from thee, and I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the heavens, and to the beasts of the field, that all the world may know that Israel hath a God, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saveth not with sword, nor with spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And when the Philistine arose to come and draw near unto David, David hasted and ran to fight against the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took out a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sticked in his forehead, and he fell groveling to the earth. So David overcame the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him, when David had no sword in his hand. Then David ran, and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of its sheath, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. So when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted, and followed after the Philistines, until they came to the valley, and unto the gates of Ekron. And the Philistines fell down wounded by the way of Sha'arim, even unto Gath and to Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from pursuing the Philistines, and spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem, and put his armor in his tent. When Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the captain of his host, Abner, whose son is this young man? And Abner answered, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. Then the king said, Inquire thou whose son this young man is. And when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, then Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite.